My name is Mike Rempel. I play guitar in the band Lotus, and I'm here to show you my equipment. So this is a guitar built by Matt Ardinger. Ardinger Guitars is his company. He's out of Pennsylvania. This is a custom axe. It's based off of his design. We worked together on just talking about what I wanted. I asked for jumbo frets. It has coil taps for both of these pickups, coil taps, so I can get that single coil sound. And there is a 13-pin Midi system built into it, which I do not use. At one point I tried messing with it and I didn't love it. The tracking wasn't great, so I don't use that. Just pretty basic approach to guitar. Volume, tone, and then the pickup switcher. It's basically it. And then sometimes I use the coil taps. Strings, I use a set of 10 to 46. Right now these are Diodario strings, but there's a company I believe they're out of Colorado, called Kurt Mangan strings that I use. I just don't have any right now. Kurt Mangan, 10 to 46, round core, I think is what they're called. They sound awesome, and I want to get some more of those, and I'll probably continue using those, but I just don't have any surplus right now. So I got hooked up with Matt Ardinger through a buddy of mine, Ken Mogul. He's a fellow guitar player in the jam band scene. He was in the Mantras for a while, and he is a pedal builder, and he actually built one of my amplifiers. But he just recommended Matt's guitars. And I was also aware of that Steve Kimmock, who I'm a big fan of Steve Kimmock's playing, also played some Ardinger guitars. And so I just, yeah, that was the connection. I was just curious. And you know, when I had this thing built, I've never been a multi-guitar player, and I don't have a lot of awareness around like how the woods affect the sound, and I just kind of wanted to get a custom instrument and like just see what he had to offer, like based off of the recommendations, and I just went with it. It was kind of a big risk in a way. I didn't know what I was gonna get, but I just love this instrument, especially the playability of it. It's just like super fluid and easy and smooth. Tuning is just standard traditional guitar tuning. I'm pretty much fucked if I tune any string to a different note. Every once in a while, there's a cover song we do, Elephant by Tame Impala. I do a drop D tuning for that, and I think there was a Rage Against the Machine song we did at one point where I did drop D tuning, but it's extremely rare for me, to detune. So I'm using two amplifiers all the time. They're both always on, and I'm using stereo delay and stereo reverb, which is why they're both always on. I'm not like switching to this one and then that one sometimes. They're both, like, it's basically a left and right situation. This is a Deluxe Reverb reissue. It's just a stock version. A buddy of mine did I think it's like a blackface mod, like based off of the early Fender, the original Fender Deluxe Reverb, I think. I don't know. I'm not much of a techie guy. I don't know all the logistics, but this is just a stock 65 Fender Deluxe reissue. And this one over here is a custom amp that my buddy Ken Mogul made. And you know, I think he designed the whole thing. It's a one-off, and I can't tell you that much about it. Like, I get lost when it comes to circuitry and technical stuff. I just had him build it, and I would be happy to refer anybody directly to him if they're interested in learning more about this amp or like getting something built for themselves. So this custom amp just a little bit more of a saturated sound. It's just a little bit more tube distortion. This one's a little bit cleaner, and when they combine together, it just feels like there's a really beautiful, rich, big sound. For both of the amps, I have them at relatively low volumes. I will tell you the order from the beginning to end. This is a RMC, Real McCoy 3, I believe is the model. It's this fully tunable model. It's got this series of dip switches on the front. I think this is the only RMC wah pedal that has that. But it can supposedly emulate, like, you know, dozens of different types of wah pedals. And that's first in the chain. Second is the Super Octave Boss OC3, and I just use that for one purpose. I just use it for a single octave down from time to time, combined with with a direct signal. It just gets like a big, kind of a little bit synthy sound, just adding an extra octave below. Then I go into my tuner, a little mini polytune, and then it jumps up here to this Keeley Neutrino envelope filter pedal. This thing's really nice, and there's just kind of a sweet spot that I've discovered, and it's kind of like that's the only way that I use it. Actually, that's not true. There's two ways I use it. There's a way that it inverses the filter, I think that's how you say it, and it's like an up sweep versus a down sweep, if that makes sense to any of you. Probably not articulating it that well, but there's a lot of settings on this pedal that just don't work for me. There's like tons of different things it does, and it just like a lot of it's useless as far as I'm concerned, but there's definitely a sweet spot that I've discovered. Just a really thick, fat envelope filter sound. Then, oh, I totally lied to you. It went to this first, and then to this. So this is actually first, then it jumps up here. I'll tell you about this. This is Strymon Mobius Modulation Modeler. This is what I use for all of my like organ sound, phaser sounds, choruses, flangers, tremolo effects is all from here. And then I told you about this. Then it goes to this Strymon OB1 compressor. I basically use compression all the time. Sometimes I turn it off for like when I'm using my overdrive pedals, which are right after it. Sometimes when I'm using overdrive, I will turn off the compression because it gets a little bit less saturation. When it's compressed going in there, it's just more of a fatter, more saturated sound. And this pedal also has just a boost on it. Sometimes use that as a clean boost for solos, for like a clean solo. Just give it a little more push. Also, I will sometimes use the boost feeding into one of my overdrive pedals, and it makes it even a little bit more punchy and saturated. Next in line is this tube screamer. This is just a basic TS9 with an Analog Man. It's called a Silver modification by Analog Man. You can look that up. Analog Man, Silver mod. He can tell you more about it than I can, but it sounds really nice. And this is a Tone Monk pedal called the Seed of Life. I don't know. I don't think he's still making pedals, but it's a buddy of mine who gave this to me, and just really love the sound of it. It's got some different settings on it. It can sometimes there's like one main setting I use most of the time, and I can switch it to get a little bit more, almost like heavy distortion. But just to say a little bit more about these two, this tube screamer is basically used for my lighter, less saturated overdrive sounds, and this one is like the heavier, more screaming soloistic sounds. And then sometimes I will feed this into this and get even more kind of like heavy saturation for like guitar solos and such. Then I go into the Boss DD5 digital delay, and basically I only use this with the tap tempo. I use different tempo subdivisions for the tap tempo. What do I say about this? This was like my earliest delay pedal, and delay, specifically tap tempo delay, has always been a really signature part of my sound, and I find that this DD5 is particularly precise and clean sounding. It's like I can tap in 4 times and it's just super tight and super clean sounding, and so it's really good for when I do like overlapping delay sounds, which is great for the electronic music sound, but I find it's really, really precise, and I can capture a lot of really cool kind of I don't know, psychedelic what's the word? It just really works well for electronic styles. And then I go into this Strymon timeline delay, and this is where I use most of my delays. And also, it's worth noting that I go in mono and I come out stereo, so it becomes a stereo effect chain from here. And there's so many different types of delay on here, reverse delays, all kinds of stuff, and I've spent a lot of time programming different patches. But delay is on the most of the time. It's like, even when I'm doing like a clean solo, it's just like a very subtle, fairly quiet, short delay that I have on most of the time. I'm going to point over here now. This is an expression pedal for this delay pedal. And this I have programmed to do different things depending on the preset. But most of the time what I'm using this for is a wet dry and the delay. So if I roll it back, it's just a very subtle, almost inaudible delay, and I can scroll it forward, and then the delay is like really fully present. And there's a lot more going on with this regarding MIDI control, but I will save that till the end. Right here we have Strymon Big Sky. It's going stereo in from the delay and stereo out to the 2 amps. And this just has a bunch of really beautiful reverbs on it. I mainly use it for a hall reverb and a spring reverb. And then there's some other more like spacious, big, kind of experimental types of reverb that I use from time to time. So now I'm going to jump to the MIDI control for these 3 pedals. I spent a lot of time learning, or like programming, different ways to use these pedals through MIDI signals, which is a new thing for me. It's kind of like way over my head, but I learned as much as I needed to learn to set this up. I am not a MIDI expert. It's confusing as fuck to me. So what I have going on most of the time is I scroll up and down through the banks here, up and down in the Strymon, and then up and down on the timeline, up and down on the Big Sky to just access different banks and different presets. And then I've got a bunch of other settings on here that control very specific functions in these pedals. Maybe I'll get the guitar out and demonstrate some of that too. Okay, so on the Mobius here, for example, with this, this is a phaser effect. I can tap in the tempo, and then I've got it programmed so that I can change the subdivision of the LFO. So it's right now it's on quarter notes. This goes to a dotted quarter. Oops. That's one example. I mostly use this for controlling delays. So here's the delay I use most of the time. Pretty subtle. I can use this to make it quieter, and scroll it forward to make it louder. And I've got this set up over here to turn it into like an infinite delay situation. So I just hit infinite, so it's going to repeat. Just gonna keep going, and then I can change. So I can change the subdivision of the delay. Once I trigger it into infinite, I can change the subdivision, how it's repeating. And I've got different delay times programmed into it. And when I use the infinite delay, depending on what preset it's on, it will have a really different impact on the sound. Like another crazy example is this reverse delay, which is 100% wet delay. There's no dry signal, and this expression pedal changes the delay time. So then I can use this to change the delay time. delay function on that. Lots of other things that happen. That's kind of one of the craziest examples. So yeah, that's the gear. I just want to name that. I just feel super fortunate, super privileged that I get to do this and that I get to experiment with this equipment. It's such an integral part of my life and my expression as a human being. I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to be here and to share, and that people are here supporting it. And so my gratitude goes out to everyone who's supporting Lotus and being a part of the community.